Hello there, this is Anthony Johnson, and the premise of this video is to discuss the difference between the where clause and the having clause. So let's run a statement real quick. We're going to do select count all from our e-commerce table, just to see how many records are in there. Okay, we have 1.2 million and some change. Okay, so this is where the where clause come in. We do from our e-commerce table again. It's not best practices, but for the sake of the video, for purpose sakes, we're gonna use a star. Then we're gonna do where country, because we have a column in there named country, equals, let's say USA. So what the where clause does is it filters out the data based on a specific criteria. In this case, our criteria is the USA value, which is in our country column. And as you can see, we have 628 records that belong to the USA. So let's expound on this where clause. We can add our and keyword inside of our where clause and say and quantity is greater than 10. Now let's see what we get, how many records we get back. Essentially, the where clause is a filtering mechanism. So now you see we have 290 rows returned. All USA, because our first piece of criteria right here is the USA. And then we have our and clause, or our and keyword, which is an extension of the where clause, where the quantity is greater than 10. So we look in our quantity column, they are all greater than 10. So what else can we do with the where clause? We can, well, I can keep that up there. I'll keep it up there. Okay, so now let's see. We can also use a subquery in our where clause. So let's do from the e-commerce table again. We'll do all where. What do we want to do? We want to do where price equals select from our table, our e-commerce table. We want the max. Okay, so now let's run this query. So as you can see, our max price is $8,142.75. And that belongs to the United Kingdom country as far as transactions in this table. So in the where clause, you actually can use an aggregate, which we use the max function here. But now what if we want to do it in a different way? What do I mean by that? Let me show you. Select. I'm gonna do our e-commerce table again. Get at an alias of E. We'll do E dot. We'll just name all our columns out. E dot to date. E dot product number. Product name. Price. quantity, customer number. And then we're going to add our country as well. So actually what we're going to do here, we're going to multiply these two columns so we can have an aggregate in our function or in our select list. We'll give this an alias of total price. Total price. Okay. So anytime you have an aggregate in your select list, you certainly have to have a group by. And that's pretty standard. So we're gonna grab our column names. Control V. I'm gonna take these two additional columns. And if you're unaware, these two columns that are in this sum aggregate function, we will not have to include those in our group by. So let's run this. Okay. And we're going to return all our records because all we did was combine the quantity and the price column, which will give us our total price. So it's doing that to 1.2 million plus rows. So I'm going to cancel this. All right, so now let's demonstrate how we would use the having clause. So let's look at our total price column. That's what we're going to be focusing on. Now, say we want to return all the items or all the records where the total price is over $100. That's when we'll use the having clause. So having, then we take our aggregate function. Greater than 100. Now let's see what we get back. And as you can see, our total price column, all of the values inside of this column are over 100. Now let's say we wanted to use the where clause in combination with the having clause. We can definitely do that. Let's do where country equals United Kingdom, because this table is heavily skewed with United Kingdom values. Let's see if any United Kingdom transactions are, we want to see where the total price is over 100 and they belong to the United Kingdom. So let's see. Okay. So now we shorten that list dramatically. You see we have 1,200, not 1,200, we have 128,523 rows. So let's demonstrate this. Let's see how many records in totality do we have. I'm gonna do select count from e-commerce. We want to see how many records in our table that belong to the United Kingdom as far as transaction wise. Where country equals United Kingdom. Okay. And you see we have 1.1 million and some change. So you see with the combination of the where clause and the having clause that we dramatically trim down the records that we return. because that's essentially what the where clause is for. It's a filter for retrieving the specific records you want. And with the having clause, it is used with, and it's used, with group data. So as you see, and it always comes after the group by. Typically it contains the aggregate function that you're using. But we can also add some additional. The having clause can also use the and as well, and keyword. So let's look. Select from e-commerce sales sheet. We'll list our columns back out, which is transaction number. I'm gonna stack my columns, or I'm gonna stack them. Transaction number, we got date, we got product number, we have product name, we have total price. Well, we're gonna create a total price column, but let's do that now. Total price is gonna be price times quantity as total price. So we combine those two columns without an aggregate. And then we're going to put our customer number and then our country. Alrighty. So now, let's just wrap this up in a sum function. Alrighty. So now we're gonna do a group by. But as I mentioned before, we have to have our select list. The columns in our select list that are non-aggregated columns have to be in our group by. It's very imperative. Okay, so now we have that. So now we're gonna do our having. We're gonna do having, take our sum function or sum aggregate. We want it to still be greater than 100. And then we're gonna say, and we'll say, and we'll do year, put our date column in there, equals 2009. And let's see what this returns. Okay, and as you can see, it returned exactly what we wanted. We could have also put that year date function inside of our where clause, which I'm going to do next. But just for demonstration's sakes, you can also put non-aggregated data in here, but it's after the data is grouped. So essentially, we are returning all of the records that occurred in 2009. Okay, we can do the same thing here. We're gonna copy and paste this down below. Yeah, I'm gonna take the whole thing. Control C, Control V. We're gonna keep this in our having, but we're gonna take this away. We're gonna Control X this. We're gonna put it in our where clause. Where date is in the year 2009. And as you can see, we get the same results. Definitely get the same results. 691 rows, 690 rows, 91 rows before. So now let's see the incorrect way to use the where clause. I'm going to take it from our table one more time, E, and then we're going to do, we'll do E.country, sum E.price times quantity. Okay. In order for this to happen, we have to put it in our group by, because it's non-aggregated, as I mentioned before. So now let's try to put our aggregate inside of our where clause. Let's try to see if we can return values that are, well, where the total price is greater than 100. Let's see if this is possible. I mean, we don't have any errors. It should be possible, but it's not, because as you can see, T-SQL and or Microsoft SQL, it gives you an error. An aggregate may not appear in the where clause unless it is in a subquery. And that's what I demonstrated before in the beginning of the video. Contained in a having clause or a select list, and the column being aggregated is an outer reference. So how will we fix this? We would eliminate this right here, the where clause. We're going to take our sum function and we're going to place it underneath our group by with a having clause. And there you go. We get 41 records back because we have 41 countries inside of our table. We actually have 42, but the other one didn't make the cut. Okay. So I hope that was very helpful. Lastly, just to reiterate it, where clause is used to filter out specific data. So when we go up here, if we go up here where it was at before, we're selecting out from the records the USA. We want all the records that pertain to the USA, and we only want the records that quantity is greater than 10. And the where clause can handle and, not like, in, subqueries. It can handle a myriad of things. So where clause is very durable, but as far as aggregate functions, you cannot use aggregate functions inside of a where clause unless it is nested inside of a subquery.